Hey guys, and welcome to Antimatter Chemistry Progress Log 0. Um, I'm calling it 0 because I think this is going to be mostly an interesting episode. First, we're going to go over the very scuffed lawn base, and then I'm going to go over the actual base design in the Creative Test World, as right now over there is what it is, which is nowhere near even like 1% completed effectively. But yes, we'll go ahead and go over the lawn base here. We have a super scuffed ME system that turns off overnight. I just had to manually feed this thing some fuel. The reason it's just everything here is mega scuffed. Just a smeltery that makes clear stained glass. We have just a big drawer wall of various elements and things. We have a setup over here that automatically farms cactus and then turns it into ethane fuel as well as using some of that stuff to make clay. We also make sand and skystone over here. This is a setup mostly designed to make our building blocks, as skystone does require chemical combiners, and we need lots of that. The primary block in the palette is skystone by far, so we need lots and lots of that stuff. So making it by hand just isn't viable. So I had to do a little bit of an XNet setup. The reason why this part doesn't have XNet was I was setting this up before I could afford XNet, and then by the time I got to this part, I could afford XNet, and I didn't really feel like rebuilding the other half of it. As I'll be very happy to tear all of this stuff down once we can. But yeah, we also get gold ingots, iron ingots, and copper ingots as a byproduct in all this stuff. Um, so we have those over here too, though it's again mostly a byproduct rather than anything specific I'm gunning for. Um, but that's pretty much it for over here. We have the demon metal forge, which is awesome. I love demon metal. Portal to the Atom, which is where we get our porphyry. And that's pretty much it from over here. And I guess we can go over and take a look at the beginnings of what the real base will be. And then we'll go ahead and swap over to the creative world, and then we can go ahead and take a look at what the real one will be. Um, so yeah, I guess we'll go right over there. Alright guys, so now we are in the creative copy of the world. As you can see, we don't have everything over there. And let me go ahead and remove that waypoint. I had to do some tombstone testing to see about creative, or not, but keep inventory. There was some weirdness with that. Anyway, so this is what the final palette will look like. This is the current final design of the base. So we have some skystone brick here. We have clear blue stained glass. We have porphyry and glowstone under there, much like the first palette for antimatter chemistry. Then we have jungle planks over here. While walking along this area, we then have like a grow patch here, I don't know, like a grass strip here that I'll use to put trees in or flowers or things. And we also, this will work, how this is going to work is we're going to have like various pathways that will branch off from the central pyramid. And they'll go down towards where we want machine pads. And machine pads use jungle timbers as well as thatch. I'm still not like 1000% sold on these machine quote unquote walls. I guess these machine shacks more like. I do like them a lot, but the thatch might be kind of annoying to get as it does take wheat to make it, which might be a little bit annoying to farm, but it shouldn't be too bad. We're also going to decorate in between like the raised pathway with a water feature. I need to figure out a way to work it in. Originally it was up here, but it was like right about here is where it was. But that was before I had worked in some hand batching areas into the central pyramid. I needed them close by. Um, yeah, so we're gonna have like some lawn decorations. I'm gonna make some trees here as well. It'll look really good because one of the parts to this base, since we'll go ahead and go over that, I guess, was that there is no terrain in antimatter chemistry. It's effectively a skyblock pack with extra steps. And I really enjoyed the terrain in Monty Factory. And though obviously we won't be able to do anything nearly that cool because I don't think anyone is nearly that good at terraforming. At least anyone on this server. Anyway, um, and I really wanted some green because last because Monty Factory was whoops all orange. And I really want some green, so we're gonna actually build out our green area. Now we're gonna build terrain and vegetation and stuff, and it's gonna be sort of like we're growing we're reclaiming the world. Since that's sort of the idea of this mod pack, um, you're sort of like attempting to escape the antimatter dimension, though in this case we're going to be reclaiming it, and as the base becomes larger and more sprawling, we'll have more and more vegetation. I really wanted to work in vegetation too. I think it's something new for me, and I really wanted to work it in, just try something new. I also really enjoyed a lot of the raised areas when it came to the mining factory base, especially the Deep Mountain Complex. That had something similar to what we're doing here, and that we had a central raised pathway that then went down to lower machine walls. And I really, really liked that area, and I wanted to do that more. So I decided to build a base that's sort of centered around that. And we'll have the central pyramid, and we can have pathways that are going off each direction, and they'll all spoke off, and we'll have lots of machine pads like that. This base is going to be not nearly as sprawling as Monty Factory because this pack just isn't uh, as this is not an expert pack, whereas Monty Factory was, and it was also Greg Tech, so those bases are just ginormous by nature. Um, yeah, and we're also using jungle logs over here. We're using also Adobe here. Oh, this won't be too bad either. This just is some sand, some clay, and then material binding is a bunch of different materials. Like all the different leaves, saplings. We have various other things here as well, like sugarcane, paper, wheat, string. So the Adobe will be effectively free to make. It won't be too bad. And Skystone is not that terrible to make. It does require some lithium and some silicon dioxide to make it, so it's not exactly like ultra free. It just requires a tiny bit of effort, and then after that it'll be fine. And jungle is obviously very easily farmable, and we have the nether, and we can get phosphorus for glowstone because glowstone is just phosphorus and comes from lots of different areas. We can get it from mining netherrack if you want. We can also get it from phosphates, which we can get from bones. So we'll be pretty good on that too. So most of the blocks here will be very easy to gather. This is sort of where the ME controller will be. I do still plan to turn off channels. I haven't turned them off yet because it's a config rather than a command in this version of Minecraft 1.12. So I'd have to go ahead and do that. I mean, it would take me like 5 minutes. I just really haven't felt like doing it. Eventually I will, but um, but for now it's we still have channels enabled. By the time we actually start building a real controller, I'll turn off channels. Um, I might build up the controller this large just because I wanted to use this interior space for something. The central pillar, I did mention that we needed to build out machine pads, and I wanted them fairly close to the central pillar. I didn't want you to have to walk a long way to get to them, and the only way to do that was to sort of build them into the central pyramid. And that meant we actually hollowed out the pyramid, and then I realized I had a bunch of empty space in here, and I really wanted to do something with it. And I thought it would be cool to have the controller and the drives down here. And then up here would mostly be terminals, and maybe like I don't know what else I'd put up here. I'm sure at the very least we'd have terminals and stuff. Maybe I'll keep this up here fairly clean, since it is the highest point in the base, and I kind of would like a clean sightline, I guess, to it and from it. And I guess we can go ahead and talk more about the idea of this is going to be a very building focused. I almost called it an episode. Sorry, guys. Progress log. Um, I know I've talked a lot about building over the course of various series, but I think I want to focus a little bit more about that in this specific progress log. I have gone through multiple different iterations of a palette. Originally, I wanted to try and work in some green slate since that was very easy to use. And there are some interesting versions. And actually, this original palette, up until about last night, was actually going to be using raw green slate instead of porphyry down here. The problem is when I went to go to the deep dark, um, green slate actually doesn't generate anymore. Any of the slate variants and chalk no longer generates in the deep dark, since because we're playing in the modern version of Antimatter chemistry, the most up to date version. So I didn't realize that green slate didn't generate anymore. So I was digging around in the deep dark, and I'm like, man, I can't find any green slate or any chalk, and I definitely should have found some by now. So yeah, so we had to pull that out of the palette, which is fine because I really wasn't too certain about the palette about green slate anyway in the palette. It looked interesting, but I don't think it really matched all that well in the base, and it was just kind of a legacy of like the original palette because the original palette actually I was planning to use polished green slate. The original palette was regular stone bricks and greens like tiled green slate or raw green slate. It was some form of like green slate. And I tried it at first, and the pyramid was almost the shape was always going to be the pyramid. I had a very good idea of the physical structure of what I was building originally, which was a raised walkway and a pyramid and go sloping down towards staircases down towards machine pads. In terms of how I was going to do the machine walls, I wasn't sure at all. In terms of the palette, I wasn't sure at all. So a lot of the building, and I spent several hours working on this, was figuring out a palette that I liked. And this looked terrible. It looked a little bit like puke green or whatever. It was just was not a good texture. The slates, I really want to use them, but at the very least, the green slate is terrible. And I really wanted more of a greenish color at the time, though obviously that ended up moving towards the vegetation rather than the actual base itself, as there's not really that many great alternatives for green. Uh, like there's lots of other good blocks and stuff, and I didn't really want to build with limestone or terracotta. Terracotta I just couldn't get to look great. I feel like terracotta really struggles to mesh with lots of other bases that don't necessarily use lots of terracotta, and terracotta in the floor next to either the bricks or the wood. Like if we replaced, for example, this skystone brick here with terracotta, just looked really bad. I couldn't really get it to look that great, unfortunately. So I just kind of gave up with that. And I really liked the clear blue stained glass. Originally, I bounced between white and I bounced between like white crystal glass, as there is the crystal glass from the Atom, and this stuff looks pretty cool. It doesn't do connected textures, but I still liked the way it is. I think it's just a really neat texture. Um, but I ended up going with blue stained glass because it matches the water features down here, and I really like how the stairs almost makes it look like a waterfall. Like again, because of like going back to that sort of like as the base becomes more and more sprawling, um, so does the vegetation that moves the base. The base is sort of like a terraforming operation. And I think that's super cool. And I'm very happy I came up with this palette. Also, originally instead of jungle wood, I was using palm wood as well as palm trees. And palm wood looks really good. It does. I think it looks really good. I think jungle wood actually looks better. I like the reddish texture a little bit more. I think it offsets the darker skystone bricks much better, or like the palm wood does because it's warmer. Originally, the palette was also attempting to be more cooler colors, which is why I was trying to use things like green and then offset with grays. But I have built whenever I used to play lots of like vanilla survival worlds, I use stone brick a lot, like a lot. And I think I'm kind of sick of it at this point, like this like the gray texture, and it's really hard for me to find another color and block that I like that goes with stone brick well. Despite being a very neutral light color and a very like normal texture, I guess, I find it's really hard to figure out a thing that goes well with stone bricks. At least the way I like them. So that's just a personal preference. Obviously, we needed elevators, and I tried to match the jungle wood as this version of we're using open blocks elevators, and they don't. I don't believe we can actually disguise these things. Maybe we can. No, shift right click doesn't do anything. This version of open blocks doesn't let you disguise the elevators. It only lets you um, like craft them with different colors, with using different colors of wool. So this was as good as it was gonna get on the orange. So yeah, that's a lot about the build. Also, again, I was using palm logs over here. One of the reasons why I swapped away from palm logs was obviously it looked better, but also I wanted to allow us to build the base before we could get to the Atom, and obviously that didn't end up happening because we needed porphyry anyway. And by the time we actually had the infrastructure to start building out the base, we were pretty much ready to go to the Atom anyway. So it that kind of ended. Uh, I did, like I said, I really wanted to be able to start building the base more, but oh well, it happens. I also normally, actually, this started off like these sides here started off with full blocks here, sort of like this. Oh, hold on. Sort of something like this. Instead of like slabs, it was full blocks, and then it was so something like this is what it was originally. And the reason why I moved it down effectively half a block was because I felt like it was blocking the sightlines a little bit. Like if like this or whatever, it felt like it was blocking the sightlines of like the machine pads as well as the vegetation here. Trees would be able to poke over, but if I wanted to put like flowers or something down there or tall grass, it would be really hard to see. So I dropped it down by half a block. So the sightline is a little bit better, and it also gives like that sense of we're at the highest point of the base on these walkways, and we're looking down and allowing these sight lines here to look pretty far down onto the vegetation. We still won't be able to see a lot like the water features that are very close to the wall, and as well as all these jungle timbers. Also, the reason why I've put these jungle timbers with these stairs here was because this wall was very flat and very tall, and it was a little bit monolithic looking, and it looked pretty good because this is a really good block and a really good texture. But I did really want to add some more depth to it, and I still might add more depth to it. Maybe I'll add like some more stairs or something, or like inset beneath or something like that. I don't know. I still might want to add more depth, especially as we build the base out more and more, and there's lots and lots of structure. Because obviously this area would also effectively be surrounded, since it's in the corner, by another walkway running this way. We'd have another walkway running that way, another walkway running that way. So these machine pads here being in the corner would be surrounded on at least two sides. I may do turns, and these things may spiral in various ways, or not necessarily be straight shots. So I might, depending on how that looks and feels, there may be more depth to that, which is just a natural progression of every base. Um, you can't plan for everything when it comes to the palette. You plan as best you can in most like a small scale thing, and as you build the base out more and more, you'll eventually get better at like you'll figure out what works and what doesn't with more certainty, effectively. I'm just gonna go ahead and fix this real quick. There we go. Yeah, I really enjoy this base palette so far. It's also my most ambitious base design by far, with a lot more complexity in terms of the building, as well as like working in vegetation. I think that's going to be really cool. One of the reasons why I wanted to go for a more complex base, as this is a mod pack I'm very familiar and very comfortable with, and I feel that being able to, I will have the ability to spend more time on building the base rather than needing to work all the time on progression. Like in Monty Factory, I wasn't nearly as familiar or comfortable with GregTech as I'm obviously a lot more familiar now after spending several hundred hours in it. But at the time, I needed to build a little bit more of a practical base that I really enjoyed. Originally pulling from the first time I played Antimatter Chemistry on this channel's base, and I didn't want to build the same thing again. As much as I really enjoyed the limestone and the sky, that palette, I wanted to build a more unique base, something that was a little bit different. Every time I play modded Minecraft, I do my best to try and learn something from this one, and this time I want to learn more base design. And lots of people, I build bases very different from lots of other people I've noticed. Like when I'm watching Jay Zell's his playthrough of Monty Factory, as well as Threefold's playthrough of Monty Factory, and those like building style bases where they're like huge buildings and they'll have like roofs and different floors and stuff, I think they're all really sick. I think they all look super fucking awesome. I just don't think I would enjoy spending time in those things. It just doesn't seem fun to me. Like, I fully acknowledge that they're really cool bases and I like how they look. I just wouldn't enjoy being in them, personally. This is like the base design I really like. So I know that all of the bases I build will very likely be some form of sprawling pathways that rather like, wide rather than tall. And that's all right. There's nothing wrong with, building what you like. Uh, Obviously, with like how this will still be a sprawling, wider than tall base, but with new features and that's a general principle rather than a blueprint, for example. But building with pyramids here gives us a lot of really cool options. If you want more height variation, rather than being able to having to build like watchtowers that you teleport to, like we did in Antimatter, or not All the Mods 9 and Monty Factory, we can just build tall pyramids. Or we can, we can build pyramids and other structures like that. If you need to build inside for some reason, we want to build inside of a structure, we can just build a pyramid as well and just build inside of it. Instead of going up it, we can just make it really big and have the pathway run into it. Especially since we don't have to worry about working it in terrain or terraforming large mountains out of the way and kind of pancaking the terrain. We can kind of build structures however we want. That's not a problem at all. So there are like positives and negatives to building in a featureless area. Obviously, we don't get any interesting terrain we can work into the base and have the base work through, but it means we don't have any terrain or we don't have any terrain that we have to worry about. That if we want to build something really big, we might have to pancake large portions of the area and how it might look a little bit off compared to since the rest of the base was built in terrain. So this gives us more options and stuff. And like I said, I'm really happy with this raised area. I think this is going to be a really sick looking base when it's done. I'm really enjoying these trees here. I only ever built one. Growing them was a little bit not great. They're super tall and super boring. And I wanted something a little bit more organic looking. And the palm trees also really didn't look that great either. They're all very samey. They're basically just jungle saplings, but smaller, unfortunately. Like here, I can go ahead and show you what they look like. So like they're all right. I just wanted something a little bit more organic looking, and it looks a little anemic compared to what I wanted, unfortunately. Uh, which is fine. We can use jungle saplings and jungle trees, and we can just whoops, manually build them, and that won't be too hard. They're being centered in between glowstones. We're still building 1-5-1-5-1-5. That worked out really, really well for me in Antimatter Chemistry, the original one I played through on this channel, as well as Monty Factory, and I saw no reason to change that. These machine pads are over here are spaced identically as well. Not that one. This one over here is they're spaced identically as well. Again, that worked really, really well, and I didn't see any reason why the machine pads needed to change. I think that style works really great, so I kind of left it. Over here, we also have our drawer style, and these drawers, I also wanted to design the drawers that we were going to use. And the drawers we're using will use blocks of charcoal, jungle wood, and adobe. The blocks of charcoal, I mean, that's gonna be fine. It's just made, we can just make it from carbon if you really want to, and we can get carbon that way, or we can just smelt down the lots of the trees we'll be farming, again, because wood has a very large part in this space, which is also something new and something I wanted to try. I generally stay away from wood textures. I've always struggled to work them in bases personally. I always felt they were kind of weird to include in bases, so I often used lots of stone and glass. Virtually all of the bases that I've built so far up until this point never actually used wood. Actually, all of the bases. Mechanical Mastery, Antimatter Chemistry, ATM9, and Monty Factory have never used wood in their base design. It's all been various stones. So being able to work in some wood here was actually a nice change. I was looking for some warmer offset colors for the sky stone here, and though I actually tried limestone at one point. Uh, I was like, man, limestone looks really good, unfortunately. And I was like, I really, really, really didn't want to use limestone again, just because I didn't want it to be just antimatter chemistry base, the first attempt to make an antimatter chemistry base. And I thought this looked really good, but I like the wood a lot more. I think it's a lot warmer. It's a less bright, more of a warmer color, and the texture is a lot more interesting, I think, than the limestone as well. And one of the things I've also figured out over time is that I prefer more pastel bases, I guess is the best phrase. I like things that are less bright, warmer. They don't necessarily have to be like, off-white, warmer colors, things that are a little bit dimmer. I don't really want to look at something and get flashbanged by it. I have a really problem. I just don't really like bases that are really bright like that. I think if you're going to be spending a lot of time in something, you're going to want to build something that isn't grating on the eyes, something that's easy to look at. And obviously the white terrain is a little bit rough on the eyes, which is why I'm going to be building as much green as possible too, as a lot of the close-in terraforming and structure and area that we'll be living in won't be stark white because we're not building walls too. One of the reasons why we got away with that in antimatter chemistry was because limestone's off white, as well as we had lots of walls. So we didn't have to look at all the white concrete, so I wasn't constantly flashbanged. And we had a lot of warmer colors in Monty Factory too. Again, we were using the off-white terracotta color, so it wasn't super bright. And it was only an accent color too. We used a lot of red and gray colors too. So I know this is effectively, or there's like the pathways for the machine walls is effectively the same as it was for Monty Factory, but it's a very good design, and I didn't really see a reason to change it. I feel like that when you come to a new base, unless you have a reason to change something, whether you want to push yourself in some way or you just want to build something different, generally, if it, especially since machine pads are going to be very important, I wanted to build something that was easy to expand, something that I was very comfortable with, and like I said, this building out the machine pads worked really, really well in Monty Factory, so I just kind of kept it that way. And we're gonna have lots of open space too. So I'm happy to have added some green here. It's to be a new color, and adding in vegetation, whether we just, use bone meal to grow saplings or we build them ourselves like this one over here, will give us a chance to do something new as well. That means though expansion is going to be a lot slower, and as well as more difficult, I think, in terms of working in interesting things. It's going to require a little bit more effort, though I think it'll be more than fine. As again, this is not an expert pack even when compared to any. This is a very focused tech-centered pack for sure, but I do not consider it an expert pack. I think it's a very good pack though, so it's going to be a lot of fun. I think that's more or less everything I wanted to talk about. I guess as a quick recap is you got to build something that you want to enjoy. If you're gonna spend a few hundred hours in a mod pack or in a base, you need to spend time. You need to make sure the base you design is something that you'll enjoy being in for several hundred hours. And that means if you try a palette and your first reaction is like gross, you really shouldn't do it. And that's what happened with Green Slate, unfortunately. So I try and stay away from things like browns and muted greens at this stage. You can use green as long as it's used effectively, but I think in my opinion, it's been really, really hard for me to actually enjoy, like puke, puke brown or puke green kind of things, unfortunately, for obvious reasons, I suppose. Um, so yeah, I did want to, like I said, this is progress log 0 because we didn't have enough progress done in the survival world to actually justify a progress. Because everything can be captured in like one screenshot, unfortunately, and then be like, there you go, I can point everything out, and we're done. There's nothing interesting to look at over there. But I'm really excited to show off this base design. It's so far this palette and this design, I think will be my favorite. I think I don't know if it'll be out Monty Factory in terms of because Monty Factory had lots of terrain that was working in that we worked into the base, and we had some really cool areas in the Monty Factory playthrough. I thought that was really cool. But I think in terms of the actual structure that we're building and the palette, I think this might be our favorite. I really like the cooler colors and the darker colors. I think the junglewood planks mesh very, very well with the skystone bricks. I really like the offset blue. I know it doesn't really match very well with the junglewood, but that's why we have the darker color in between them so they don't clash so hard, as well as it looks like a water pathway. Again, because this base is sort of supposed to be along the vibe of we are terraforming this lifeless world as this base expands. And I think that theme will carry us very far. We've also been given lots of interesting tools with with like the central core here being a large structure rather than just like a flat box room. Which means so we can build height variation that is connected to pathways, as well as interesting rooms if we need them for whatever reason, or if we just feel like building something inside of a room. So I think we're in a very good position for a very good base. I think I'm really excited to see how far this goes. I don't think the base will be nearly as expansive as I'm imagining, just because of there's uh, fewer things to do when compared to Modding Factory, which is not like a bad thing. That can be a really good thing compared to for a pack. Is a lot more of a focus, Short term, again, relatively. It's really everything relative to Monty Factory and those Greg Tech packs is short term. I mean, the first time I played Antimatter Chemistry on this channel was 288 hours, which was less than half of what I spent on Monty Factory. So I think that's all I've got for you guys this week. Again, as a short little reminder, I will be moving progress logs to Friday for some logistical reasons. And as a personal side note, my birthday's actually next Saturday. Woohoo! Um, yeah, I might stream on that day. Actually, I probably won't. But maybe like the day before or something. We'll have to see. Again, there's construction going on in the house, and uh, even though there's no hammering right now, there often is over the weekends, unfortunately. So which is why I'm not recording on Saturday. Well, I will not be recording on Saturday going forward anymore. Um, all right. So I hope you guys have had a good week. Mine's obviously been very cool, very happy. I'm happy to be back on the antimatter chemistry grind. Also, the first base, there's a screenshot of the first base I built on the channel is on the main menu of the splash screen for antimatter chemistry for the 1.4.10 version of antimatter chemistry. It's the last one in the slideshow, so I think that's like super cool. Antimatter chemistry is my favorite pack of all time, and I've been playing it pretty much since it came out. And to see one of my bases on the front page the main menu is fantastic. I'm really honored. I really made it, guys. I did it. I made it. So I hope you guys have had a good week. Mine's been pretty good. I hope you guys have a good upcoming week, and I will see you all again next week.